the chairman of the IEBC because we got another letter from him yesterday evening, and we have responded to some of the issues, so we are making them public. And equally, we are also buying space in the print media so that we can make it bare as to what are our irreducible minimums in a manner that would be perhaps easier to access for all Kenyans. So let me proceed and read this short statement, and then the rest can be distributed to you. Earlier today, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission claimed that it has scheduled a meeting that had been planned for this morning with the National Super Alliance. We wish to set the record straight. As at now, NASA is not aware of a scheduled meeting with IEBC. In any case, NASA does not intend to hold any casual meetings with the IEBC as currently constituted or under the ad hoc smokescreen in which it operates currently. We have made the considered decision that henceforth we will engage the Commission through an open, structured national stakeholder dialogue in which binding resolutions will be made and shared with the public. No more boardroom meetings with IEBC. NASA has therefore today delivered to IEBC a letter of preconditions necessary for a free, fair, credible, and accountable election. In the letter, we restate that a credible election cannot be achieved by cosmetic exercises intended to ring-fence vote riggers and vote rigging. The preconditions are for the purpose of a credible, fresh presidential election and cover procurement of election materials, transparent use of and access to ICT, replacement of irredeemable personnel who abetted electoral fraud and their crimes, gazettement of polling stations, and live media coverage of results declaration at the 290 constituency tallying centers in the same manner as done at the National Tallying Center at Bomas. Our irreducible demands are not impossibilities. Ours are within the emerging broad international consensus that the IEBC needs to correct the irregularities and illegalities committed in order to carry out a credible fresh election. In this context, we wish to note that the EU Observer Mission has since revised its observations and made recommendations that are not dissimilar to what we have suggested to IEBC as a reducible minimum. As we have pointed out before, our experience with the IEBC does not inspire confidence. We do not believe that the IEBC leadership believes in good faith or keeping its word. Kenyans will recall that in the run-up to the August 8th, 2017 elections, the IEBC chairman, Mr. Wafula Chebukati, committed publicly not to announce the presidential results until all results were in. He then proceeded to go back on his word and to do the exact opposite. We are dealing with very dishonest individuals at the IEBC. When we visited the Commission 2 days ago, we were bombarded with a document titled Status Update on the Commission's preparedness for the fresh presidential elections that we had never been informed about. The document opens with reference to the Supreme Court's annulment of the presidential election on August 8th and the attendant orders for fresh elections. The document, however, conveniently failed to acknowledge that the court found the Commission culpable of illegalities and irregularities in the elections. That is dishonesty and a clear indication that the IEBC is living in denial. The Commission wants to proceed as if the illegalities and irregularities never happened, and as if it were never indicted by the same Supreme Court. This is despite the acknowledgement of the same by way of the widely publicized letter written by the chairman to the CEO detailing these acts in their entirety, constitute one of, if not the most egregious and cynical breach of trust committed by public officials in our nation's history. We are dealing with a very thick-skinned and callous leadership at the IEBC that is not moved by the Supreme Court judgment, the unprecedented public outrage, and our attempts to impress upon them about the gravity of the misdeeds. IEBC is engaged in a glaring see, hear, speak no evil charade that is totally unacceptable to us and the overwhelming majority of the Kenyan people. In the Commission's view, picking second-tier officers who are intimately involved in the scandal of August 8th election constitutes adequate reforms that should make us engage and proceed to elections. Furthermore, their superiors are now back in charge. People who should be investigated for crimes that border on treason now claim to have investigated themselves, found themselves clean, and taken control. We do not have to remind the Commission that the Supreme Court declared the presidential election null, void, and invalid, and stated unequivocally that elections are to be adjudged on the constitutional threshold of a free and fair election. We see no evidence that the Commission is making a good faith effort to conduct a fresh election that fulfills the letter and spirit of the judgment. IEBC is attempting to circumvent the illegalities and irregularities it was cited for. This is enough evidence that the Commission intends to conduct another sham election. This amounts to further contempt of the court and of the people of Kenya. We will not allow this selective amnesia to stand. We reiterate that we shall not allow IEBC to conduct another sham election for which it is asking the Kenyan taxpayer to underwrite to the tune of 12 billion shillings. We hereby reiterate that there will be no elections on October 17th. IEBC must fulfill the conditions necessary for the fresh election as ordered by the court. Lastly, we wish to call the bluff on Jubilee, disowning a petition by its member to remove Chief Justice David Maraga. The country needs to know that disowning the Ngujiri petition by Tuju is a cover-up of Jubilee intentions to intimidate and emasculate the judiciary before the October 17th election and on numerous petitions filed against Jubilee. This was equally exposed when Jubilee's senators schemed to strip judiciary powers in support of Uhuru's vow to teach the judges a lesson. End of statement.